I'm starting a new series. It's going to be interviews with Olympians. Why Olympians? Well, two purposes. I believe every Olympian has a story to share. The successes, but also the failures in their life and what they learn from it. As well as bringing attention to the life of an Olympian or past Olympian. Well, what's in it for me, you might be asking? Well, that's a good question. The second purpose is I believe that everyone can learn from Olympians. The way they approach things, the way they overcome obstacles, the strategies and tactics they are using to achieve a goal. So it's not only meant for people with a background in sports or who want to achieve sporting goals. I really believe everyone can learn from them because they have gone through adversity and difficulties and have overcome difficulties and adversity. And what you find most often is the strategies and tactics they are using are actually quite simple and you can apply it yourself. Yes, I said simple. I didn't say easy, it's simple. And that is, I think, where the value lies. Why Olympians? Well, the Olympics is the biggest sporting event around and it happens only every 4 years. So just by being an Olympian, you are one of the best of the best. So I truly believe these people can teach us something. Another thing that sparked me is when I was listening to the podcast of Tim Ferriss. He interviewed Coach Sommer. Coach Sommer was former Olympic coach for the US gymnastics team. And he has now built a business around called Gymnastics Bodies. You might have seen that. It's basically using gymnastic exercises to get into shape. But what really resonated with me in that interview is when he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he said, the internet is a funny place. You can become known and a thought leader by shouting the loudest. But at the Olympics, it's different. You have to become known by merit. And that really sparked the idea in me. I'm training Olympians. I have Olympians around me. Why don't we just start an interview series listening to what they have to say? Because very often they are not very much in the limelight. They don't receive a lot of media attention, depends a little bit on the sport, but they definitely have a story to share. And this is something that will come later in this video, where I outline a little bit the interviews that I've already done and the big learnings from these interviews in very short bullet points. You have to watch the interviews in total when they later come out. So back to the topic, stimulated by Tim Ferriss, who said, dissecting the habits of world-class performers. I want to dissect the habits and the stories of Olympians with the ultimate goal that what they have to share can help you, whether you are an athlete or whether you are a normal person who wants to achieve certain goals. And the third purpose is a little bit selfish. Ever since I have been a small kid, I was impressed by really outstanding performance, especially in sport, but also in other areas of life. And over the years, I've worked with so many great individuals who have achieved sporting success, outstanding performance. And I really want to dive a little bit deeper into what makes that person special. So my vision for these interviews is that I've seen and I have worked with Olympians for the past 8 years. And I've seen how hard they train, how many sacrifices they do in their lives to achieve the sporting success and to chase their dream. And I've shared glorious moments with my athletes, but more often than not, you also share unglorious moments. And I really think these are moments also that are interesting for people to see and listen to, because what people see is always when it goes well. When it doesn't go that well, that's what you not see all the time. So I really want to give a platform for Olympians to share their story. So what can you expect in these interviews? We have Toine van Gent, double Olympian, BMX Supercross, one of my athletes, and he shares his story how he got injured both times prior to the Olympics, 2012 and 2016. And I mean, injuries are part of an athlete's life, but if these injuries happen within 2 months before the Olympics and are quite severe, and you see how your dream fades away of placing or winning a medal at the Olympics, how do you deal with that? And then also even more exciting, how did he manage to qualify for the Olympics despite of these adversities? and then even manages to pull off a good result. We have Nick Kieman, another BMX Supercross rider, and he shares the story how he went from junior world champion at the age of 18 to senior world champion at the age of 19 to being an Olympian at the age of 20, which all sounds pretty great, but he also shares the story how difficult it is when you have reached all your goals by the age of 20, the consequences that can have, and how he managed to come back and still motivate himself to set new goals and go towards these goals. And even more interesting in that context is that the moment we had this interview, it's some time ago, he's really crushing it this season in his sport, being the dominant person in this particular sport, going on to set new records within that season. We will have Matthijs Buchli, another athlete of mine, who against all odds qualified for the Olympics in 2016. Also injuries involved, but also not being in the shape of his life, manages to qualify and then pulls off a silver medal at the Olympics. Olympic champion 2012 in Olympic weightlifting, Alexei Torokty from the Ukraine, explains how he focuses on one thing and how he uses failure as a part of his progress. As a nice story here, I had a seminar, workshop, a masterclass with Alexei, and I had that interview after that with him. I also spent time with him throughout the day before and throughout the day. And I can still hear in my ears how he says, focus on one way, focus on one way. We have Jeffrey Hogeland, track cyclist, one of my athletes, double world champion this year. This year means 2018. And he explains to us how he learned to access the full physical potential of his body. Really interesting story. And he kind of proved it at the World Championships this year, where he had in one of the events, the 1 kilometer time trial, he went so deep into his reserves that they had to carry him off the bike after the event because he really gave everything he had. He won and he set a new world record in that race, by the way. We will have Sam Willoughby, another BMX Supercross rider from Australia, and he explains to us how he went from a great moment being silver medalist at the London Olympics to a very dark moment at the Rio Olympics in 2016 to an even darker moment after that, and how he has recovered from that dark moment. A really inspiring story to see how strong someone can be and how positive someone can be. We have Shanna Braspenix, one of my athletes, and she shares the story how she went from basically top of the world, being runner-up at the World Championships in 2015, to having a heart attack, a serious heart attack, a few months later, not knowing whether she will ever be able to perform her sport ever again, fighting back and qualifying for the Olympics within less than 1 year. We will have Mariana Pajon from Colombia, double Olympic champion BMX Supercross, and having literally won anything she could possibly win in her sport, and outlines how she stays motivated and how she uses her nerves to get into the peak state to access the best possible performance. We'll have a very long and interesting and insightful interview with Mark Teutert, Olympic champion speed skating 1500 meters in 2010, who shared the story that Olympic championship, that Olympic medal was paved with difficulties and adversities along the way, in the purest sense of the word. How he qualified for his first Olympic Games in 2002, approaching these Olympic Games as one of the favorites, and then completely trained himself into the ground because of overmotivation. How he didn't even qualify for the next Olympic Games in 2006. How he qualified for the Olympic Games in 2010, but going into these Olympic Games, not really as a favorite, at least that's what people said and people thought. He himself believed that he will win that Olympic Games, and he ultimately did. And even more interesting, his philosophical approach, how he adopted a growth mindset to confront himself with adversities and ultimately overcoming these adversities. There'll be more interviews coming after that. Some people I would really like to interview at some point in time. Nadia Comaneci, gymnast, Pirosh Dimas, Olympic weightlifting, Katharina Witt, figure skating, Alberto Tomba, alpine skiing, a member of the Olympic Dream Team from 1992, preferably Michael Jordan, and maybe my personal hero from the past, Rafael Nadal, Olympic champion 2008 in tennis. Well, let's see how that turns out. I put some pressure on myself and said the frequency will be one interview every week for the next 6 months. So there's some work to do for me to get the great information across to you. The format of the interviews will be mainly video in the beginning, but maybe later also video screen shares, which I guess is understandable if someone is at the other end of the world, that we're going to use the online resource to record these videos. Even though I would love to sit down with these people face to face. And future interviews, I'm also planning to interview coaches of Olympians, some fellow S&C colleagues of Olympians, and other members of the support staff of Olympians. So now I turn it over to you. Please leave a comment below. Let me know who you would like me to interview, and I will reach out and give my utmost best to get these people interviewed.